What about big data? Yeah. What about multivariate data analysis? What have you been teaching? Thank you. You hear me better now? Yeah. All right, well, we're going to be on a fast journey this morning. Having a lot of fun, raising a lot of questions. Perhaps you'll have some questions. He said to ask you, he said that you should ask me lots of questions. If you ask me lots of questions, every one of you, we would be here till next week. And I've got other places to go and visit and enjoy. So anyway, it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And I'm really excited to share with you some of the things that I've learned in the many years that I've been teaching. I'm an old man, but I'm still running fast, and I bet I could run faster than some of you. Don't try it though, because I couldn't run as far as you. But anyway, you've got a lot of things to learn, and I hope that you are as successful as am I. And this topic is a topic that is near and dear to me. I actually started out in marketing, and I really never thought about getting a PhD, although it's worked out quite well for me. I had a master's degree in marketing. I had a job, a good job, that I was about to take at a company that you probably have heard of called Xerox. Pretty good company, struggled a little bit adjusting to disruptions in the marketplace. But about the time I was ready to take that job, the university came to me and said, "How would you like to get a doctorate in business?" And I said, "What's that?" They said, "That's the next step after a master's degree, and then you can become a professor." And I said, "What's that?" Okay, I knew about these people that I've taken courses from, and most of them were really good. A few of them weren't quite as good, but anyway, most of them were really good, and I thought that might be fun. But on top of that, they said, if you decide to come here, we're going to pay for your education. We're going to give you a fellowship funded by the United States Steel Foundation, and you won't have to worry about anything except doing your coursework and becoming a graduate of the university. Of course, I didn't tell them my side of it, because my side was thinking of the fact that at the University of Florida, at that point, I was unmarried, and there were lots of good-looking young ladies there. And we had a football team that actually beat Alabama every once in a while. You may have heard of Alabama, American football. I'm there now, and I'm glad to be there because we win all the games in Alabama. But in those days, Alabama beat Florida a lot. But anyway, I chose to get my doctorate, and I got that doctorate in marketing in 1971. And so in another 2 years, I will have been doing these kinds of things for almost 50 years. So being a professor can be fun, exciting. Every once in a while it's a little frustrating because students have priorities sometimes other than their studies, but it usually works out pretty good. My degree was not in statistics. In fact, I'm probably like many of you. You say, why would I ever want to study statistics? Maybe you're different than American students, but I can tell you that I hear that all the time in the U.S. Statistics, the only people who like statistics are really weird. I don't think of myself as weird, but maybe you do. I'll wait and see what you think at the end. You probably notice already that I learned a little bit about marketing when I was in my program. So when I was in my program, I was towards the end, and there were a lot of changes occurring in graduate schools in business programs in general. And there were some reports by the Carnegie and Ford Foundations which criticized business in colleges because they were supposedly too vocational. In other words, the research that they were conducting and the activities that they were actually teaching were mostly descriptive. Okay? They were not theoretical. They were not empirical. They were not research and scholarly based. And they said, if in fact you're going to graduate business students who will be successful in the 21st century, we were thinking about that then even in the 60s. If you're going to graduate students, they need to understand and apply theory and not just copy things that have been done by others, but develop things, best practices, new practices, things that can continue to improve the economy. Well, that little surprise changed my life, because what they did following those reports at the University of Florida, and actually most of the business colleges in the U.S., is they came in and they said, you must introduce theory and you must introduce statistics and analysis. And one of the things that they did is they hired 3 new young professors in marketing. Okay? Sounds fine, but it turns out that the professors they hired, one from UCLA, one from Harvard, and one from Wharton, names I'm sure you've heard of. They came in and we were finished with our coursework, but we had not conducted our doctoral research. We were ready to do that. We thought we were going to do something like a history of Holiday Inns, our strategies used by Coca-Cola, or one of the other big companies, and describe what those companies had been doing in the past. The new guideline said, no, the past is important and it's useful, but let's learn from the past and talk about how we can be better in the future. The bottom line is, when they came in for my cohort of 6 marketing PhDs, they came in and they said, you must use, in your doctoral dissertation, you must use what's called multivariate data analysis. I'm sure all you people know what multivariate data analysis is. It's the analysis of multiple variables simultaneously, all at the same time. Historically, at that point in time, we had been looking at 1 variable, maybe 2, but not many. So they said, you need to begin looking at things from a more comprehensive perspective with multiple variables, because that's the reality of the world. The result of that is that I had to change my plans and learn this new technique that had strange vocabulary. Even though they said it was in English, it was very, very strange. Homoskedasticity, heteroskedasticity, parsimony. What are those things? I mean, you know, Americans are the worst about learning foreign languages. We just believe everybody should talk English. That was a new language for us. You know, I studied Spanish as a second language, and I thought I was really good. I did it for 6 years, and I made all A's. And I went to Spain and I said, finally, I can get some value out of this 6 years of Spanish that I studied. This was when I was just after an undergraduate, thinking I knew everything in the world. And I went there and I started trying to speak Spanish. I quickly learned that my dialect was the 29th dialect, because there were 28 other dialects, and of course, my dialect nobody had ever heard. And they didn't understand me, and I didn't understand them. So anyway, those are a couple of my adventures. Let's talk about the fact that I've always been an opportunist. In my early years, grew up in a family of entrepreneurs and small businesses. I learned and became, early in my life, a licensed plumber, an electrician. I sold magazines. I worked in a restaurant. I led a tour of college girls, 25 of them, to Europe when I was not married. You know what the result of that? I married one of them. And I'm still married to her, 50 years later. How about that? Everything worked out great. Well, anyway, I recognized when I was learning multivariate, I recognized there was an opportunity and decided that with my marketing background and my skills of writing, that I was going to write a book. I was going to write a book on multivariate data analysis that I had never even heard of a year ago. Sometimes it's good to be young and foolish because you don't know how challenging it might be to do something. The problem that I ran into, and I ran into this when I was trying to learn. I ran into this when I was trying to learn this new and different statistics technique. This is a page from the leading textbook at that point in time. Okay, and this was what I was supposed to learn from. Now remember, I only had one stats course in my life. Believe it or not, when I was a sophomore and much more interested in things other than classroom and studies. On top of that, that classroom was Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 7:30 in the morning. You think I wanted to get up and go to a stats class at 7:30 in the morning? Even that time, statistics was taught to us on a television set. We got to see a graduate assistant on Friday, and otherwise it was interacting with a television set. I finished that course. I made a C, and I promised myself I would never take another course in statistics again. And I haven't. Can you believe that? I wrote the #1 book in statistics, not just basic statistics, but advanced statistics, and I had one course in stats in my life. You gotta believe in yourself and believe in the fact that you can do things. Otherwise, you'll never do anything big. So anyway, this is the leading textbook, as I pointed out. It supposedly is written in English. And so I thought perhaps I could read it. Now, you know, since I haven't had any stats much and I haven't had any math, except what I've learned on my own, I look at this formula, sigmas, Greek alphabet, again, a language problem. That's what you see throughout this book. So I flipped through it and I said, wow, none of us, and certainly me and our other colleagues, really wanted to read from or even thought we could learn much from a book like this. So this book represented the past. And my marketing training said, there is a future for a book that is truly written in plain English. And that's where my idea came from. So let me share with you a couple of these sentences, because you see there are some sentences up there that are actually in English. Not very plain English, but they are in English. So, in the factor structure, the element RJK gives the correlation of the jth test with the kth factor. What does that say? Where are the stats guys in here? Can you answer that question? Even I have a hard time with that today. Well, you know, that's only one sentence. Let's read some more. We gotta, assuming that the content of the observation variables is well known. We can do okay with that. The correlations in the kth column of the structure help in interpreting and perhaps naming the kth factor. Again, you know what that means? The whole book is like that. That's the English. What are we supposed to do? You know, at that point in time, I was just married. I had a job at the University of Mississippi. I wanted to graduate because my offer at the University of Mississippi said, if you come to work and have your degree in hand, you've graduated, we're going to pay you the huge sum of $14,000 a year. Not much today, but if you come without your degree in hand, you're only going to make $7,000 a year. A 50% reduction. Did I feel motivated? Absolutely, but I've got to use something that I don't know anything about. Well, again, a motivation for me because I knew that there were some other students out there who needed the same kind of thing. Naively then, I started when I was even in my doctoral program thinking about how I could become sufficiently knowledgeable to write a book. Okay, so I began writing this book actually after I got my degree, which by the way, I did finish. Okay, I did finish and I went there and I made that sum of $14,000 a year. And it was pretty good in those days. That's what I looked like when I started writing my book. Hair had some hair back then. Yeah, I'm an ugly old man now, but I bet you ladies, look at that good-looking man. You know, you gotta have some fun in life, right? Can't be all statistics. Can't be all work. I always work with my students and talk about the approach to life should be when you work hard. When you play hard. And try not to mix them too much. So anyway, let's talk about the topic that we're here for today. The topic is big data and data analytics. I've actually been working in this area since the early 1990s, before a lot of you people were even born, okay? And I began thinking about it when I read this book up here called Thriving on Chaos. I recommend, even though that's 30 years ago, that you could learn something from reading that book. The phrase that I really was moved by, we're drowning in information and starved for knowledge. Basically, what that statement was saying and what was written in addition to that phrase was even then, there's lots of information, lots of data. The problem is that we were not able, even at that point, to convert much of that information to knowledge. What's the conversion mean? The conversion means that you can take that information and use it to improve decision making. Improve decision making for you personally, in your own life, and in your business situations. Tom Peters, the author of that book, said, at that point, probably only 5% of all the information that was available was actually being converted into knowledge. And his prediction, and you know, predictions are always difficult because they're almost always wrong, even though the smartest people make them. He said we should be able to convert at least 50% of that information to knowledge. What's happened? We know probably even less of the total information that has been, in fact, converted to knowledge. What was he not able to predict? He was not able to predict the internet and digitization. And therefore, even though we are capable of converting a lot of that information, much more information today, to knowledge than we were then, we have so much more knowledge that we can't possibly deal with it. For you students, the number one thing I would recommend that you do is get involved in some kind of data and data analytics. Even though I'm in marketing, okay? Because that is a skill that will make you in demand in the marketplace, not just now, but for the foreseeable future. That's a prediction I feel confident in. How much data do we have? Oh, we see statements like this everywhere. They're all about the same. It's estimated that in the next 3 years, humanity will generate more data than it has in the past 1,000 years. Well, that's a lot, but it's a general statement. It's hard to quantify that even for a statistician like myself. In 1991, Tom Peters went on to say that basically data, as we know it, and even data like we have today, data in organizations, in corporations, was considered to be a waste byproduct. A waste byproduct because it was too expensive to collect. We were collecting some, but it was still very expensive. It was too expensive to store. There were not many people that were trained to deal with small amounts of data, much less the amount of data that we were drowning in then. Fortunately, not only for small businesses, large businesses, but also for medium-sized and small businesses, increasingly they are able to access the data that we have and at least begin using some of that information to improve their operations. Probably a number of you have heard big data. You may even be able to define big data, but let's talk about what it is and how it might be useful to us. Big data is really what it sounds like. I've been using that term for a number of years. It's only been in the last 3 or 4 years that I posed the question to people, you know what big data is? That they now, some of them begin saying, yes, I have an idea. From your perspective, you should think about it as large, complex data sets that you need a lot of knowledge because it's so complex and so difficult to capture and process and analyze and make sense out of and use it to help make decisions. Because of big data, it is shaping the world we live in. Your life, my life, at home, in business, in government. It's having an impact that is, in essence, changing the power structure in the organizations that we're involved in. Big data, as a general definition, is divided into 2 categories: structured data and unstructured data. You probably think of big data as structured data. Structured data is like numbers. Numbers that you can apply mathematics and statistics and computer analysis to and use it to understand and identify patterns in the data that you have. Unfortunately, the other kind of data is unstructured data. And unstructured data represents an estimated 90% of all the data that we're talking about. What do we mean by unstructured data? You watch YouTube, videos. Unstructured unstructured data. You watch advertisements, you go on websites, you see pop-up ads. That is all unstructured data. We have to examine unstructured data. We have to code it. We have to convert it so that the computers, that as smart as they are, the computers can analyze it and identify the relationships in that data and then help us to use that data to make better decisions, to live better lives, to be better corporate and business individuals operating in that environment. So, fortunately, we're moving towards the point where the technology that we have enables us to convert a lot of that unstructured data so that we can then use it. But there's still a lot of work to be done. So for all you smart, young, motivated young people, that's why you should think about becoming a data scientist. You should think about becoming a data scientist. Because I assume that you, like me, are highly motivated to be successful in your life. And this is a lesson that the academics need to think about as well. In business colleges, for years, what we've told our students, get an MBA. Master's degree is good, maybe get out and work a few years, but then come back and get your MBA. Why? Because an MBA was your ticket to moving up in the organization. In the U.S., in the top 100 listed companies, there are now about 15% of the CEOs are data scientists. They do not have an MBA. So the route to the top in business and industry that we used to recommend for you to go, and we still do. There's nothing wrong with an MBA. If you're going to get an MBA, though, you need to learn a little bit about data analytics, and perhaps even some of you think about being a data scientist, because the 15% in the U.S., it's not going to be too long before it's 30%. Okay? But when you're a data scientist, you can't be what we would call in the U.S. a geek. You got to be a data scientist that gets along with people, that has management skills, has the ability to be empathetic and understanding of people, but also to understand the power of data. Data is, in fact, changing the world that we live in. Well, how much data do we have? All right, well, and again, one of the experts, one of the more technical data scientists said he estimates the total amount of information in 2014, 4.4 zettabytes. Okay, all you smart people out there, what is a zettabyte? How much is 4.4 zettabytes? You know what a gigabyte is. Yeah, you've heard of it. You know what a terabyte is, but what's a zettabyte? Because look at that. Next year, they think that we're going to have 10 times as much data, 44 zettabytes. You really need to know what a zettabyte is, right? Maybe. The data scientists certainly know a little bit about it. But anyway, they make up strange words like that to represent it. But none of us know, or not many of us know anyway, what a zettabyte is. Unfortunately, there are other names for the amount of data as well. So if you look at it, terabyte, petabyte, exabyte, zettabyte, and yottabyte. Yottabyte sound like something that you want to eat or something. Anyway, we're confused enough about zettabytes And now we got to start thinking about yottabytes. And by the time we learn a little bit about yottabytes, they're going to come up with another strange name like that to measure. It sounds impressive, doesn't it? Maybe you don't think it does, but it does sound impressive. But, you know, that's a lot of data. Where is all that data coming from? Well, I'm sure some of you people are on Facebook. Or maybe you're on some other social media platform. Facebook estimated 200 billion, with a B, 200 billion photos already there, 350 million photos uploaded daily. Every time it gets uploaded or moved, or somebody writes something or likes somebody on there, it creates data. What about Twitter? I don't know whether you use Twitter or not. I don't use Twitter. But Twitter, 500 million plus tweets a day. And of course, with our president in the U.S., boy, he creates a lot more Twitter. Think of all the wasted data that he's creating out there. I shouldn't say that, should I? Anyway, that's a source of data. And of course, Google searches. I'm not sure what search engine you use, but lots of data is created by that. So, online transactions and behavior, that's a lot of the unstructured data. And that unstructured data needs to be converted. Lots of countries have cameras today. Cameras everywhere you go. Okay? And there is value in having cameras. Value in terms of reducing crime rates, or maybe catching people after crimes, or other issues that are valuable. But those cameras produce lots of data. Well, who has the most cameras in the world? What country? No, the example, UK has about 5 million. And you go to London? I bet a bunch of you have been to London. London has about 800,000 cameras. Okay? And they've been very useful for them. If you've been to London and you've walked the streets of London as a tourist, you've been photographed an estimated 65 times a day. Every day. You are in the London, UK database. Your good-looking face. And your arms and your legs and your shoes and your clothes. It's all there. Back to my question. Who, when I say who, what country has the most cameras of any? One of your neighbors. China. How many cameras? Estimate. Nobody knows how many cameras China has. But the data scientists have estimated. What's their estimate? 200 million cameras and counting. Wow. Wow. Okay, well, who comes behind London? New York. But New York, they only have about 400,000. Chicago, about 300,000. The camera people really love these countries, and I'm sure they love China. But I tried to search for the number of cameras in Indonesia. You guys are keeping it quiet. Maybe I should say your government is, or whoever's installing them. Lots and lots of data. I talked a minute ago about the cost of storing data. Found a quote a few years ago. And that quote said that, and we all pretty much know what a megabyte is. It said that in 1992, again before a lot of you guys were born, 1992 the cost of storing 1 megabyte, $15 US. Wow, that's a lot of money. And by 2015, a couple years ago, 1/3 of a penny. 1/3 of a penny. That's why we have the capability of storing all that data today. Also, Also, in terms of collecting, I mentioned the fact that it was expensive to collect back in the 90s. It's a lot less expensive to collect because it's on the digital network. It's on the digital ecosystem, and it's automatically collected once you've invested in the system. Is there anybody in here, raise your hand, that does not have a mobile phone? All right, who's got 2? Yeah, maybe 3. All right, in India, 1 billion plus mobile phone subscribers. And by the way, that number is dated. China has more, 1.4 billion. In the US, we're laggards, 330 million. Okay, well, that's a lot of mobile phones, every one of them creating lots of data. Lots of data. Estimated just last year there were 5 billion mobile devices in the world. Next year, 2 years later after that, 50% greater in terms of sales and penetration of mobile phones has changed our lives in the world we live in. The dean here this morning said that. He held up his phone. He says, look what these things have done to us. All right? It's like they're gods. There's something that we focus on all the time. Where's my phone? If I lose my phone, I'm lost. All right, well, we've got a lot of data. What are we going to do with it? That's where your statistics comes in. That's where your analytics and your data scientist comes in. You really need to have the ability to understand what to do with that data. Okay? Fortunately for you people, you have excellent software. You have excellent hardware. When I first started doing analysis, some of the programs that I run today in seconds would take weeks to get a solution. You don't believe that? I know you don't believe that. You can't understand what it was like. You probably heard these stories before. I'm telling you, they are true. That's all right. We're glad that we're helping you out because we're going to challenge you in ways that we were never challenged. We've got machine learning. Machine learning is the process that we have as humans, we have developed. Because even though we think we're really smart, and we are pretty smart, there are things that machines can do for us more efficiently and effectively. So we've designed systems called machine learning and taught them how to teach the other machines. What we do in a lot of that analysis is we let the machines drill down through that data and identify the patterns that are relevant. But we have to tell it what patterns to look for. There's still a job and a role for us. We must avoid a system where the machines take over, and that's in our power if we just exercise it. We've got machine learning, we've got artificial intelligence, we've got humans, and in addition to identifying these patterns, we need to use them to predict better ways to organize and run our businesses. The future then, at least in terms of technology and what you people are going to be exposed to, is going to be based on artificial intelligence and machine learning and statistics and blockchain technology, all these new things that you need to be aware of. You don't need to be an expert in all of them, though, but you need to find a field that you are interested in and learn it and apply it and become successful. Well, we can't talk about all these companies today, unless you want to. You want to stay here till tomorrow? You got food? You got any food? You're ready? You might do it. Anyway, I want to pick out a few of these. And talk about them. Some of them I've worked for, some of these companies. Some of them I consume. I'm sure some of them you do. You don't have Walmart here, do you? No, but you got another big box retailer. Walmart, for a number of years, has been claiming that they have the biggest database of all companies in the world. Who knows? It's probably Tencent or one of the other Chinese companies. But anyway, Walmart claims to have a big database. They are using that data to design their stores, decide the patterns that people walk in inside, decide where to place the merchandise, what goes at the end of the aisles to motivate people to purchase. Now, in your part of the world, you have what's called typhoons. Okay, big storms. In our part of the world, we call them hurricanes. So companies like Walmart, and you may have heard of Home Depot and Lowe's, building construction, big box stores, they use this data to predict what will be in demand when a hurricane actually hits the shore. Because if you, as a store, don't have the merchandise when someone comes in there, it's a lost sale, probably forever. Okay, so you want to make sure you can plan ahead of time so that you have sufficient inventory for what people want when they come in, so they can purchase that and be prepared for the hurricane when it hits. And their technology, along with the weather service, can predict reasonably accurately where that's going to come. They have automated systems based on their data that predicts fairly precisely the eye of the hurricane and the range of it. Why would they do that? Well, they want to make sure that they're prepared with all the items that people want to buy before the hurricane to be prepared. So what items do you think are in demand from Walmart that have been identified based on their analytical models? This is your time. Give me a guess. What kind? Canned food, right. Canned food, what else? Come on, this is easy. Come on, water. Right? What else? Ice?
Medicine.
If you're a drinker, the students always say in the U.S. beer. Okay, whatever. None of those are the single item in highest demand in Walmart. You know what it is? Well, lots of people have kids, and lots of time the electricity goes out. And even though you may have ice, you may not get your electricity back on for a few days. You have to have food that is not perishable, will not spoil. You also often have kids, okay? And what's the last thing that you want if you don't have electricity, and you don't have air conditioning, and you don't have a lot of water? You don't want your kid yelling at you, "I'm hungry." The number one item in demand at Walmart, predicted by them and consistently predicted, is something that you couldn't name, but it's a pastry called strawberry Pop-Tarts. Strawberry Pop-Tarts, because it's packaged in cellophane. It's got sweetness in it, a little bread. It lasts easily a week with no refrigeration, and you give it to the kids. Not very healthy, but it keeps them from being unhappy. Number one item sold by Walmart. By the way, Walmart, as I said, claims to have the biggest database. Well, I've taught in MBA programs quite a bit too. It turns out my students from the mobile phone companies say they have the most data and the biggest database. The students from Microsoft Oh no, they have the biggest. The students from Google, everybody claims to have the largest database. Nobody really knows who has the largest database, but they all have large amounts of data. All right, well, I bet every one of you, maybe not every one of you, you drink orange juice? Yeah. You like juices? Every hotel, this is the third sitting we've been in, they have great juices in the morning at the breakfast spread. One of those juices is always orange juice. All right, most of you, I would bet, like orange juice. We've been taught that it's healthy and we should drink it. Well, I grew up in Florida in a little city called Orlando. You don't think of that as a little city, do you? Because I think of it as a little city because I grew up there before Disney. Orlando was 100,000, give or take, population when I grew up there. And there were only 2 high schools. One on the north side of town, the other on the south side of town, and they competed all the time. And of course, the poor people were on the south side, which is where I grew. Actually, I didn't grow up in too poor a family, but I wasn't the rich one like the north side of town. But anyway, I grew up in Orlando. My family, as I mentioned earlier, was in construction, electricity, electrician, and plumbing. And I learned a little bit about that. But in addition to that, my mother taught me to drink orange juice in the morning. So what was orange juice to me? Well, orange juice meant that I woke up in the morning, and if my mother had already been out in the backyard to pick some oranges and brought them in and squeezed the orange juice, that was orange juice for me, a couple of glasses, and if in fact she hadn't, she said, go out and get your oranges. All right, well, that was orange juice to us. Probably the same thing still to many of you people. But Minute Maid, owned, by the way, by Coca-Cola now, Minute Maid built the largest production plant in the world in the U.S. a couple of years ago. Because they sell their orange juice in more than 100 countries. All right, so when I was started out learning about orange juice, I learned a little bit about growing them because they were all over Florida. It turns out that the season for oranges is about 4 months, maybe 4.5 months. And different oranges mature at different months. Some of those oranges are sweet. Some of them are sour. Some of them have lots of seeds in them. Anyway, they're different, and the orange juice tastes different. Some of them have more pulp than others, all right? If you like orange juice, you probably want the orange juice you drink today to taste the same if you drink it tomorrow. You don't want sweet orange juice today and sour orange juice tomorrow and a bunch of seeds in it the next day. So Coca-Cola, and in fact Minute Maid, their company, has to produce orange juice that tastes pretty much the same every day. Otherwise, you're going to buy your orange juice from their competitor, and there are other companies that make orange juice. They also have to adjust it for all the tastes that are different in the 100 plus countries they sell orange juice in. A really huge task. And they want to make it available around the year, not just the 4 months during the season. All right? So they hired a bunch. They already had a number. They hired the data scientists to work with them to enable them to produce consistent orange juice all year round. How many decision variables, different kinds of data, do you think that they looked at and continue to look at in order to develop different taste different orange juice formulas for the 100 countries that they're selling in. I know you're going to guess it's a big number. I'm telling you, it's a bigger number than you think. According to an article in Business Week, 1 quintillion decisions. What is a quintillion? Anybody know what a quintillion is? It's big. It's really big. But that's what they tell you. If it's Business Week, it must be right. Close anyway. All right, well, one of my favorites is this.
That's a big boy.
Anyway, it's called Sungevity. You see, Sungevity. I like this because it represents you people in the future and what you can do with your business degree and becoming entrepreneurial and understanding how the world is changing today in terms of data. Sungevity was in fact started just south of you guys down in Australia. 2 young graduates, about 25, working for a solar energy company, and they were trying to sell solar panels to the residential as well as the commercial market. So when they were working, this is about 15 years ago, they were working there, and how did you bid out a job for commercial, for either commercial or residential for solar panels? Well, where do solar panels generally go? On the roof, right? Okay, they go on the roof. And if you were going to install solar panels, you need to know something, obviously, about the square footage of your home, residence, commercial. But you also need to know something about the roof, because you've got to design panels that will fit on the roof. How did they estimate that? They had to send a crew with a truck, and if it's a home, with ladders. All right? And if it's a commercial building, they had to go through elevators and maybe up to the roof, and they had to measure the roof and design a solar panel system that would be capable of heating water and doing other things in the building. Well, there are lots of problems with that. Number one, you got to send people, you got to have automobiles, it takes time, and also sometimes people fall off ladders and they're out sick or whatever. So it's a costly thing, or it was a costly task to estimate the solar panel needs. What did they do? They said, wow, we now have free maps from Google Maps. Satellite. Every roof in the world is capable of being identified. And you can measure it. They developed an algorithm that used data from Google Maps and other readily available information. And that algorithm is a data analytics approach, which they could sit in the office and use their algorithm and create an estimate of what it costs to install solar panels. Wow, think of all the money that they save. And of course, Google Maps data is free. They were so competitive in the market compared to the traditional companies that it was, in essence, in that industry, a disruption like we're seeing from companies like Uber and Lyft that are changing the taxi world. Okay. They later sold that company and made probably a fortune, a good bet. All right, anybody in here drink soft drinks? Yeah, a few of us. You know, we do that in the U.S. as well. In fact, soft drinks in the U.S. as a category in the U.S. are greater than coffee, tea, and fruit juices combined. That is a lot of soft drinks, all right? So it's a big category, and it's a lot more than you probably thought about. Now, it's declined just a little bit in recent years. People are trying to be more healthy, drinking a little more water, maybe energy drinks, some other crazy things perhaps. But anyway, Anyway, when we think about soft drinks, what is a soft drink?
Soda.
Flavored, colored, sweetened, carbonated. Water. Water. It's just water that they have convinced us we should buy when in many instances water is free. Yeah. And how did they do that? Well, they've had a few secrets over the years, but the bottom line is they've had good marketers and they've had good data scientists, and they've convinced us that soft drinks should be the choice when you're thirsty. Okay, well, let's talk about how successful they've been. You people haven't been answering my questions very much. You know, in the US, students always, sometimes they talk too much, but whatever. When I'm in the Pacific Rim, they don't ask as many questions, so you can answer this, I hope. How many soft drinks, worldwide, how many soft drinks are open for consumption every second of every minute, 24/7? Anybody want to guess? Come on. 1 million. See, now, I fooled you a little bit. I'm glad you said that. I don't want to embarrass you. But remember what I did. I divided it, I sliced and diced it to very small. 1 second. So think about it. There's lots consumed, but if it's every second, it's a much smaller number. Now listen closely, okay? The number for Coca-Cola alone is 8,000. Okay, may not sound like much, but think about this. 8,000, 16,000, 24,000, 32,000. It never, ever stops. That's how much Coca-Cola has convinced us to consume soft drinks. And by the way, you see up there, Pepsi. Pepsi sells almost as much as Coke. It's always, always there. Anybody know where the name Coca-Cola came from? Coca-Cola was invented in the 1870s. Yes, they did do some things like electricity and phones and whatever 100 years ago. There's some smart people then too. It was invented. It was first available in a soda fountain in a drugstore. It had a special formula. Coca-Cola. It had cocaine in it. Oh yes, until 1921, the special formula for Coca-Cola had the drug cocaine in it. Yeah, okay. One of their, secret formulas like McDonald's or secret sauce. Secret formulas, you tell people, you convince them to drink it, and yeah, wow, they feel good. All right, well, this is an advertisement from 1876. All right, and it's an intellectual beverage. That's for people like us, right? Okay, intellectual beverage and temperance drink contains the valuable tonic and nerve stimulant properties of the coca plant. Yeah, they advertised it. They told people. All right, and let's move on. Delicious, exhilarating, refreshing, invigorating beverage. All right. A valuable brain tonic, a cure for all nervous affections, sick headaches, neuralgia, hysteria, melancholy. I bet you students would like to have that when you're going to lectures, right? Yeah. All right, well, that secret went away, but it gave them a really good foundation to be successful. And they continue today to be very successful in spite of the fact that they have a dark history. All right, well, data analytics. We're supposed to talk about data analytics, aren't we? There are lots of benefits to data analytics. They help us identify these patterns that I'm talking about. And when we identify and apply those patterns, there's less risk for our businesses. Less risk because we make better decisions. When we're informed, we make better decisions. Our customers are more satisfied. And when our customers are more satisfied, they're more loyal and they stay with us. I assume all of you have read the Harvard studies. The Harvard studies looked at customer retention over a number of years and loyalty. And basically they concluded that the businesses that are characterized by higher loyalty are more profitable and their cost structure is lower. Revenues and profits go up if you have a higher proportion of loyal customers. One reason that they shared with us is the fact that the cost of acquiring new customers is far more expensive than keeping your current customers happy. All right, so those are some of the benefits of data analytics. We knew how to do that before, service quality, service recovery, but we can do a much better job today because we've got better data. And guess who's using it now? Actually, they've been using it at McDonald's for many years. You know, it shows you how good McDonald's is if you start thinking about what they've done. McDonald's has about 30,000 stores, restaurants worldwide. The other competitors that they have, like Burger King and Wendy's, and maybe some local competitors, but Burger King has about 10,000 worldwide, and Wendy's has about between 5,000 and 6,000. But let me ask you this. If you've eaten in one of those restaurants, who has the best hamburger?
McDonald's?
Nobody ever says McDonald's.
Yeah.
Nobody ever says McDonald's. I mean, they got a Big Mac, okay. But it's not the best hamburger, okay? I'm not sure what your chains are, but I can cook a much better hamburger than a Big Mac. But what do they have? It's the best. There's a survey that's been done in the U.S. and it consistently tells you that McDonald's French fries are the best. You don't think so, eh? Whatever. But anyway, in the U.S. they think that their French fries are the best. Okay, but above and beyond, that's not why people come back to McDonald's. People come to McDonald's because they have friendly faces and they have fast service and they have good customer service. And you can predict that you'll have good food when you come in there the next time. All right, you can tell I'm having fun. They just told me I got to stop. But I got 5 more minutes, and so I got 5 more minutes to entertain you. You never thought it could be fun to learn about statistics, did you? It is. Statistics is actually fun. Maybe not when you get down in the weeds and you got to deal with those computer things, but it can be really fun. All right, well, I can't tell you too many stories. You know, data analytics and data analysis is not perfect. There are always problems with it. All right, you can have ideas or judgments that you just believe in. You know, today what we're interested and need to do and actually can do with data analytics is we can move from judgment to the facts. We can generate the facts, so judgment is good, but facts are better. And actually what the best is good judgment in combination with the facts. So I've been talking about a number of good and valuable things we can learn from data analytics. But in fact, there are also some challenges and difficulties. I don't like the privacy issues. All right? Google have trackers on 76% of all the websites in the world, except China. They won't let them in. Anyway, 76% of the websites have Google trackers, and they're capturing information about you. Any of you people have a My Google account? All right, well, there's a published article about an individual who counted the number of pieces of information that My Google was collecting on him in a year. How many pieces of separate information about his behavior does Google have after 1 year? Yeah, 73,000 different pieces of information about one person in 1 year. Wow. Information is power, and it's changing the power structure. And you need, as students and as future successful business people, you need to understand and be able to apply that. Otherwise, you're going to be left behind. All right, well, I'm going to skip this because we don't have enough time. But anyway, well, I don't know. We've got 3 more minutes, haven't I? Let me challenge you one more. Read these 3. This poses the question of, are sports writers really necessary? There are 3 summaries here. One of them was written by a computer. 2 of them were written by a real person. Okay, so are they necessary? Tell me. Which one of those was written by a computer? Anybody pick one? You can raise your hand. Anybody pick one? All right, we got a few people. What about 2? Yeah, well, what about 3? Nobody guessed 3. I guess you're done. Anyway, number 2 was written by a computer. Yeah, but it's very, very similar to the people, right? It's hard to tell. So what I challenge you is, how does this apply to you? If you're an accounting major, if you're a marketing major, if you're a data scientist, if you are a business professor and you're running the business college, you need to think about that. All right? Because it's going to disrupt the job opportunities, not just for you, because you're a young guy. Me, I'm an old man, but I'm still running fast. Okay, so it's going to disrupt our lives, and you need to be prepared. So let's skip a little bit further. Last thing, I know, the future. What's going to happen? Well, there's going to be more data. It's going to continue increasing dramatically. Fortunately, the data that we're going to have is going to be higher quality. If you've ever heard of the company called Statistical Analysis System, SAS, from the US, SAS tells us that 50% of their annual revenues is based on what they call cleaning data. Cleaning data, because there's a lot of problems with the data. We got lots of it, but you don't just take it off the shelf and use it. You got to fix it. You got to clean it. You got to get rid of the bad data. Okay. Analytics that we have now is great, but it's going to get better. Better and better and better. All right. And finally, our decisions, management decisions, academic decisions, your personal decisions are all going to be impacted by this, because increasingly everything is going to be knowledge-based and not judgment. Thank you very much. I've had a great time. Think about